Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
My name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com.
Happy Mother's Day, everyone.
Happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there and all the aspiring mums and all the not mums as well. All the kids that have to put up with mums on Mother's Day.
You can all just have a happy day.
Just have a good day.
One.
I don't think, you know what? I don't care who hears me say it. I hope everyone has a lovely day.
A lovely day.
Everyone? I wish everyone has a lovely day.
Even neo-Nazis? Let's cancel George. This is how it begins.
I think there's a few people we could maybe not wish a nice day on.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, it turns out the world, even though we're wishing everyone a happy day, the world isn't necessarily a happy place. No. Sidebar, before we started the show, I just realized that the concept of ready like a Russian doesn't actually work anymore because they weren't very ready for their invasion of Ukraine.
I think that
it's kind of a
phraseology came about because of the potential for nuclear exchange. It was just kind of like we're always ready to push the button and destroy the West. I don't, given what we've seen in Ukraine, I don't think we could argue that Russia's military is in a state of constant readiness. I definitely don't think anyone's making that argument anymore.
So, George, I think what you're saying there is that the expression's always been problematic. It's just that now Adam feels bad about it, when he should have felt bad about it in all the many years he's been using it.
I mean, that could apply to so many things.
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why you would come for your friend in such a way. That just feels, mean.
I'm confused.
It's on the positive views. We've achieved problematic bingo very early in the episode.
Discord cut out the bing.
Oh, really?
Just a little bit.
It'll
be on the recording.
It'll be on the recording. Trust me.
Yeah.
It only takes about 30 seconds for us to arrive at something that's problematic. So
yeah, a little problematic. I mean, we are three cis men doing a podcast.
You better ring it right now, George, because we're about to go to something very problematic.
Anyway,
yes,
abortion rights.
Speaking of people we might want to, speaking of people we might want to wish not have a nice day at all, whether it be Mother's Day or literally any other day, the United States Supreme Court. You know what?
Mother's Day is some fucking timing, isn't that? Isn't that some shit? Mother's Day, they're releasing the Supreme Court ruling on Roe. On this case, which would
released
overturn.
It a week ago.
No, I know,
it a week ago.
but it's like right around Mother's Day, right? Like it's not.
Not great.
I think the timing is interesting. So
yeah, I mean, they breezed past International Women's Day back in March. I mean, but I guess when we get into the story, we'll see this. They were kind of thinking about it around then, so not great.
Queen's birthday's in June. They couldn't wait that long, so they had to just sort of pick a day,
Oh, no, they hate that Queen.
The US, in case you've been hiding under a rock and you don't know the story, the US Supreme Court had a judgment leaked, which is the first time.
Judgment. Let's be clear.
A draft
judgment leaked.
A judgment that. Yeah. It seems to be practice for the Supreme Court that, they go through drafts. They don't just bash out the essay and then chuck it in like some kind of student.
It's not the final copy and it's not locked in stone, is my point. It's not a judgment.
And it's not, and it means it hasn't happened yet. It's not like they have smacked down the ruling and it's come into effect. But it is essentially them going, all right, well, show of hands, yay or nay. Cool, we've counted it. We want to overturn Roe v. Wade. I'm just going to draft up the wording to how we tell the country.
Yeah, so basically Samuel Alito is the author of the draft opinion, which basically reads like, sucked in, bitches! It does feel like the very maximalist, anti-abortion stance in the way that it's been written, essentially saying I'll get the quote, but it said something to the effect of Roe versus Wade should be overturned. It is very, and okay, this is fucked for a number of reasons, but number one being obviously it would effectively make abortion, it would hand the legality as to whether abortion can be completed or not back to the states, which would effectively make abortion illegal immediately in about half the country. So that's bad.
Extremely bad.
It's real bad. And certainly the Daily from the New York Times had an interesting piece about this where they were talking about how it would affect, because obviously there are states where, particularly New York and California being the big ones where abortion is legislated and legal in those states. And so sort of doing the thought of experiment of going, okay, well, how would this work if it's illegal in certain portions of the country and women need to travel in order to get these abortions? It might actually make abortion less available in the places where it is legal because of all this extra demand coming in and filling in from other states. So it's just really, it's not good.
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, because it's the same old arguments over and over again, right? That it's that, okay, you aren't a fan of abortion, don't have one. It's a person's right to choose. It's their bodily autonomy. It is a medical procedure that is like no one else's business but the person seeking one.
It's so funny that listening to conservatives talk on the matter, they're kind of like, oh, well, this is just the beginning. Like, we got to make it illegal in the rest of the country as well. And like, so now Roe's overturned federally. That's fantastic. Or it might be overturned federally if everything, as it is as it is in this draft opinion. But now we've got to figure out how to make it illegal in the places where it remains legal as well. And then they're talking about like how they're so concerned about all the kids and all the strain this is going to put on services and like, oh no, our fight's only just beginning. So that was immensely concerning as well. So in case anyone watched The Handmaid's Tale and said, oh, that's a bit melodramatic, isn't it? No, we've got a real life Gilead in action here. So reporting live from Gilead here at the theocratic headquarters of the United States. It is just crazy that a handful of religious extremists on the Supreme Court can just overturn precedent, all of whom, when they were interviewed for their jobs going for the Supreme Court, said like, oh, they were asked, what do you think about Roe versus Wade? What do you think about Casey? Planned Parenthood versus Casey. And they're like, oh no, that's precedent on precedent. We would respect the precedent that the court has set. Even though I disagree personally, it's not my personal opinion. I agree with the precedent of the court. And they're like, actually, we're the majority now. Fuck yous, sucked in, bitches. Like, this is what we wanted to do all along. Suck my dick.
Yeah, and it's why it's wild.
It was what, 1973?
73,
yeah. Handmaid's Tale was 85. But I thought for some reason that was based off around that time when Margaret Atwood wrote it. But
it was based on the sort of conservative resurgence after Reagan, right? Like that was the thing that sort of spawned the idea. But like, yeah, this sort of Christian moral majority nonsense bullshit is obviously like, everyone said that the people who were warning about this were paranoid. Like, oh no, you're crazy. It's Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade can't get overturned unless they overturn it, in which case it's overturned. Like, and the fucking thing is Alito in all the things that he cites, the previous judgments as his rationale.
The guy who wrote the draft that leaked last week. Yep.
Right. Yeah. The Supreme Court Justice. He was quoting precedents set by like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and things like that. Like he was deliberately doing it to be a troll fuckhead, to be like, look, these are times when the Supreme Court has overturned existing precedent. And they're like, yeah, but Samuel, that was to give people more rights, not take. This is the first time where the Supreme Court has just gone like, we're just going to take away some existing rights that you have. You know how you had those constitutional rights last week? Now you don't anymore. See you later.
That's the part about Roe v. Wade that's interesting. Like the precedent that was set was that the 14th Amendment, I think.
Many amendments. There's been lots of amendments to the Constitution, but if anyone wants to amend the Constitution again in the US, you can't amend it. It's the Constitution. Constitution?
So the 14th Amendment is no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the laws.
Yeah, so the essentially the precedent set by Roe v. Wade was that the 14th Amendment covered a woman to get an abortion.
And Alito's taken this very maximalist position of like, oh, if it's not explicitly called out in the Constitution, it's not a right. And so which leaves the door open for what they think is like the potential overturning of other pre-existing rights, including I think it was the Obergefell decision, which is like interracial marriage. And like, if we are internally consistent with the logic you've just laid down, and then he says in the document, like, no, it only applies to abortion and nothing else. I'm like, bro, that's not how precedents work. I'm not a Supreme Court justice, and I know that's not how precedents work. You can't just go, this precedent is for this thing only, and nothing else will ever happen again like this. Abortion is a one-time thing. Don't worry about it, guys. Like,
nothing else will happen in this way ever again. Just like how we said, this very thing we're doing is not a thing that we would ever do at all.
So things like gay marriage, interracial marriage, like all of these things could now be left up to the states. And so you live now potentially in a country where if this ruling goes through, it's sown the seeds for like future like rights to be repealed. So you could have a couple who's like driving from New York to California who are interracially married and or gay or not, and like their marriage becomes legal and not legal depending on which state they drive in and out of. Like, it's so
just
fucking
to be really
cool.
clear though, this is like down the line guessing. But it's not. There's no one's publicly come out and gone, this is a potentially
but it's not guessing.
That's the point of precedent.
It's the reason that he has mentioned these other previous agreed cases in the Supreme Court is to sow the seeds for, like, there's no other reason to mention them but for sowing the seeds of potentially undoing these rights later on. Why else mention them? Like,
it's the whole point of precedents, and that's why Roe v. Wade was important in the first place, right?
Just planting seeds.
A decision of the Supreme Court then can inform future decisions and laws of the land. Like, I'd forgotten that that's how same-sex marriage became a thing in the States, was a Supreme Court decision effectively made it the law of the land. Like, no one legislated it, no one, campaigned on it.
But this is the weird thing as well, is that it was set through precedent. So there was a case brought to the court, and the court made a decision which set the precedent. What they want to do now is roll out some sort of announcement kind of thing. There's no case. No one's fighting anything in the court. They want to do a decision.
There isn't a case challenging abortion. The
rollback
is
not a case that's
being
tested.
Rollback. It's based on on a case that was heard in December, and then the rulings are typically released in like June, July over the summer is where they release them all at once. Like it's some big like fucking judicial Super Bowl.
All the journalists go into lockup and get to read every Supreme Court decision
of the actual cases.
Well, it's irrelevant. The whole point, the point of the case, the point of the case is irrelevant. The case was invented with the understanding that there was a conservative majority of the Supreme Court for the purposes of overturning Roe v. Wade. The specifics of the case are irrelevant. The case was genetically modified to do this, right? Like,
are we saying that the case was not actually a legitimate thing that someone was trying to fight? Someone's invented it.
The way these activists work is they fight, and like I say, activists on both sides, like the left and the right, both do this, where they go out and they proactively find a case that is to be the guinea pig for, okay, I will take this to the Supreme Court. Not because I care about you particularly and your situation, but because I want to change some sort of precedent at the Supreme Court. And so, similar things have happened with, the Rosa Parks at the Montgomery bus boycott. She was like an activist, and she was like selected for the purposes of being a sweet old lady that refused to get up off the bus. And that could be a court case that they would then run up the chain to see, because she was a sympathetic victim, right? Yeah. So like both sides do this.
It was Claudette Coleman who actually did the impromptu on the bus thing,
So I wasn't familiar with her name, but yes, I remember hearing the story about it a while ago. So it is something that both sides of, both activist judicial sort of sides do. But it is interesting to see that like, that the judgment appears to have come down so unanimously on one side, and it's like purely aligned with people's political leanings. Now, the reason that
because
here's the thing.
They don't leak things.
So this is like, as far as I'm aware, this has never happened in the Supreme Court. So a lot of people are saying that, it was a leftist activist that wanted to like give everyone some warning. And I'm like, no, that seems very too smart and coordinated for the left. So
let's get a person on the inside.
What
the Supreme Court?
Doubtful. So what I think, and what other people have also been sort of suggesting, is that it was actually someone who was a conservative, and they think one of the 5 in the majority is getting cold feet in advance of this decision being announced, and by releasing it to the public, you're kind of like locking them in and sort of forcing them to sort of go along to get along. And so the implication is a lot of people think it's Ginny Thomas, Clarence Thomas's ultra-conservative, batshit crazy wife, that's leaked it for the purposes of advancing her political ideology.
What did we say about her? She was the one that was like...
She was texting Mark Meadows.
Yeah.
Being like
a bunch of crazy fucking QAnon
madness.
Yeah.
So the thing is, though, I guess here's another question. If one of the Supreme Court guys leaked the judgment, they could prove that, would that therefore be in itself a crime and invalidate that judge from serving on the Supreme Court? Or can they not be struck down because they are the Supreme Court?
I know that they are lifetime appointments, the Supreme Court judges, so I think it would have to be something pretty egregious for them to be impeached. Someone. Yeah, it'd have to be like you like choke out a fucking clerk in the courtroom. I think it'd have to be something pretty egregious. Generally what it relies on is judges recusing themselves, and Clarence Thomas has shown that he's completely unwilling to do that, given this whole Ginny. It was like ruling on situations whether his wife's texts would be. He was the one holdout. The other 8 justices were just like, yeah, obviously we should release this information. He's like, I for some reason have ruled no. It's like, Clarence, have you Googled conflict of interest? Do you know what that means, Clarence?
That was a good sidebar. I mean, obviously, the whole part of the reason why this fuels. I mean, obviously, there's the egregious breach of rights, but the other thing that fuels, I guess, a lot of the confusion, perhaps from an overseas perspective, is that it's the concept of banning abortions is just so
dumb,
we were
bad,
talking before about
terrible, immoral,
the freedom aspect.
Yeah.
But it's a contradiction of values. Right, the whole thing is a contradiction of values. And then, of course, the argument, of course, is we're protecting the unborn, we're protecting the new life, we're protecting the child.
Country where 45,000 people are gunned down every year, all of a sudden cares about the right to life.
Yeah. Well, and more on top of that, even in the sort of facetious sort of take like that of being like, oh, cool, you're protecting the child, and so so you're saving children's lives because like every life is precious and you want to bring them into the world. Oh, cool. So you're going to give that child universal health care and a good education and free childcare for the parents so they can do their best to provide for that child and give it the best life ever. What? No, you're not? Okay, cool. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Cool.
They're
awesome.
even talking about potentially sowing the seeds for banning contraception.
Wait, what?
So you would think that if your main goal was to make sure that every life that potentially could come into this world was given the best possible chance, if that was really the argument, if it really was a moral argument and not about controlling women's bodies because they're whores, then you would think that you'd be throwing condoms off the fucking Eiffel Tower. What's the tower in New York?
Chrysler Building.
I was thinking the
Empire
State. You'd be throwing condoms off the Empire State Building. Every passing person, you'd be like, fucking condoms, take some fucking condoms, have the safest sex. But they're not about that. They're about
hand jobs for all.
Hand jobs for everyone. It explains why all those Republican senators are, tapping feet under the stalls is because they want people to have sex that cannot end in pregnancy. The only kind of okay sex is gay sex happening in Republican stalls. It's just like a complete contradiction in terms. They're not, they're also they're banning abortion, or they're trying to, seems successfully, and they're also not wanting to educate kids about sex. They're also wanting to get rid of contraception. It's just a recipe for a bunch of teen pregnancies.
Turn around and look at Saudi Arabia and Iran, and they're like, oh, those guys are too conservative, they're controlling women's bodies. Oh, those guys are, we can't be like them, those radicals. It's like,
oh yeah, I saw someone make essentially that point. They're like, oh man, I hadn't checked this myself, but it was them being like, oh man, you think Sharia law is bad? What if I tell you that Sharia law allows abortion? Oh, you got to look at what them Christians are doing.
More religiously extreme than Sharia law.
It's intense.
Yeah, it's theocracy. Like, Americans just share a country with about 70 million sociopaths. Like, I just don't know. And the problem is that they're really well organized. All these sociopaths are really good at like put lots of money, and they could put together this federalist society, which has a whole pipeline of conservative judges that like pushes them to. This is an effort that has been like 50 years in the making of like creating a pipeline of conservative judges, pushing them to the Supreme Court for this exact purpose. This is the purpose for which Amy Coney Barrett was like born and bred. You know what I mean? Like she was like genetically engineered in a laboratory for this moment. Yeah. She's like Master Chief. She's like bred for this moment.
Yeah, Amy Barrett was the Supreme Court judge who replaced Ruth Bader Ginsburg following her death. So like the one that Trump rushed through, which it was one of those. It made me think back to. I remember back in 2016, and how wrong I was, feeling like, okay, Trump's been elected, and like, no, he's not just going to sit on the start a war button. He's not going to bring us all into the apocalypse. It's just fucking shit that the crazy right-wing nut bars, sexism, racism, and whatever won. Man, that's an indictment on society. And then flash forward to now, it's like, and then through this massive pipeline of judges and things, they got 3 Supreme Court picks out of this.
When they should have had one.
Then when they should have only had one under that sense, and just okay, no, all right, so it does matter.
Elections
like, it's not just,
matter for anyone who said
they matter so much more than you think.
I don't want to say I fucking told you so, but for anyone who said, what's the difference between Hillary and Trump? They're basically the same. I was like, I guarantee you, if we elected Hillary Clinton in 2016, we would not be ending Roe versus Wade. Elections matter, and the Supreme Court is just one of many manifold manifestations of the ways in which they matter. So, yes, vote for the less evil, even if it is slightly trash, because less evil is still much less evil than this. This is what happens when you don't vote for the less evil, when you just abstain and stay home. This is what happens.
It's also like,
thank you.
Just crazy in my head that like the country that wants to do this is also the same country that produces like, I don't know, 80% of the world's pornography. Like, it's just like, I can't get my head around the contradictions.
Adam, you've got to inspire all the people to have those babies. You gotta put them in the mood for the Sideways Charleston,
that's the thing I can't wrap my head around, are the contradictions of American
it's
society.
So crazy. It is such an enigma.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, it really is. There should be like the coasts, and just like, and the coasts should be their own country called America. And then the middle part should just be its middle part, sort of Florida. Yeah. The little dong hanging off the side. It should just be their own country, and they should just be called like the South. And that's the name of the country. And they can be their own country and just be a shit country full of pricks that doesn't do anything. It doesn't generate any money.
This war, the civil sort of
I have
war
heard
about it. Like,
and legitimately, like, in retrospect,
tried to do that.
In retrospect, reunification may not have been the best idea. Like, it's just, it's insane that all of these people live in the same country. That like the hick who lives in like rural South Dakota lives in the same country as like the guy who lives in LA, and like, yeah, it's just like it's
in a city latte sipping dickheads.
Latte coastal scumbreed wankers, I believe is what they call us.
No, that's us. That's us. No, but I think also it's unfair to say that this is only an America sentiment, at least.
Oh no, definitely
like, not to the same maybe extent, and also not with the same history, but and also like set up as to where and how abortions are legal or accessed. But there's already been people in Australia being like, yes, good, rubbing their hands together seeing this, which is why, again, what happens over there fucking matters.
Yes. Yeah, because it matters to us, because every conservative over here gets the same ideas that the Americans conservative had, 5 years ago, right? So it flows on. If that is the Overton window, if that's acceptable in political discourse over in America, it's only a matter of time before Rupert Murdoch, pulls it over here in the form of
Yemeni, just like jumps on the
or Avi Yemeni even sooner. Yeah.
We've already had a Victorian Liberal MP say he is, quote, praying for abortion to be banned in Australia following the news of that Roe v. Wade may be overturned. So
it is fortunate
that here as well.
It is fortunate that prayer is an ineffective tool for legislative change. So that is somewhat of a relief. But
Bernie, like drafts and commissions and inquiries and canvassing, all that sort of stuff doesn't work. Prayer is the only way to overturn 100%. Abortion. You keep at it, Bernie Finn.
You keep at one day.
Believe in you.
You keep praying hard enough, you'll get it. Don't do anything else. Just pray about it.
Yep, just pray about it. Guaranteed to work. You do anything else, you're fucked.
This also has implications for the American midterms, which are coming up in November. Democrats, up until this point, were looking fucked 6 ways from Sunday. After this announcement, it has reinvigorated a lot of the Democratic base. It does seem as though it could be the exact thing that would allow Democrats to sort of rally around the flag. You'd be like, hey, you can vote for us. We are facile shitheads. Or you could vote for the party that's like trying to ban abortion. Like, make that right not a right anymore. Like, which would you rather have? And like, overwhelmingly, the vast majority of Americans, somewhere around 70%, think that abortion should stay where it is in its current form. Like, there should not be any, substantive changes to it. So like, it's funny that the Republicans have gone really out on a limb here. They're actually more conservative than even their base. It's like they've kind of like moved in terms of like polling and where people are at. Like, the Republicans are like way out past them.
The party hijacked the whole party movement and have pushed the legislators further across than their actual base is.
Sorry, who did what? Say again?
So it's almost like the Tea Party somehow got control of the Republicans and changed their policy platform.
Yeah, thanks Charles Koch for all that astroturfing, all that money you pumped into that batshit insane movement. Yeah.
So, do we have anything else to?
It's just fucking terrible.
It's cooked.
Yeah.
Well, it's really good about that because the fact that it's terrible, because the next story is also terrible. So we'll just have two terrible stories going together, and everyone can rejoice. So the stock market crashed a little bit, sort of, not just like a little bit, but
so
kind of, sort of.
$57 billion in value approximately was wiped from the Australian stock market last week. And
a lot of clams.
It's a lot of clams. And so it's not great news, but it seems to be largely in response to various announcements here in the United States, in England, about rising interest rates. And this is what's known, or what has been known in the past, as a taper tantrum, where as the RBA or the Fed, as its counterpart is known over in America, raises the rates of interest. Basically, everyone freaks out and sort of imagines that rates are going to keep rising and money's going to keep getting more expensive. Your home loans are going to increase. Future cash earnings are going to be discounted as a result, and things aren't going to be good. So asset prices plunge. And it's interesting because, so I've just finished reading this book called The Lords of Easy Money, which sort of goes into this phenomena in some depth, talking about the way the Fed has done quantitative easing and this ZERP program, which basically pumps billions of dollars a month into the American economy to try and prop it up and try and achieve minuscule amounts of economic growth for it, trading off for tens of billions of dollars worth of debt monthly. Not a super smart program, but I did learn something about corporate debt this week, which does explain why this is happening, why everyone's freaking out. So
now we need a spot just for a little jingle. Insert jingle here.
George talks economics. Hey, no, wherever I go. So basically, okay, let's talk about corporate bonds. So the way a corporate bond works is that you, Adam, give me George, $100. And what I do is I pay you a coupon rate of 3%. It's like an interest rate. You're the bank essentially, and I'm borrowing the money from you. Rather than paying off the interest and the principal, though, I'm just paying you the interest. So say it's a 10-year bond. I give you 3% a year for 10 years, and at the end of that 10 years, you get your $100 back. Yeah. So I'm giving you $3 a year, $3 a year, $3 a year, And then at the end of 10 years, you get $100 back. So whereas like with a home loan, you're paying the interest and principal down over time. So the reason that's funny how that system works is because it means that because the interest rates historically, or for the last 10, 15 years, have just, since the global financial crisis in 2008, have just been going down steadily to stimulate the economy. What it means is rather than paying you that $100 in 10 years, what a lot of corporations do is just they turn around and borrow more money from someone else at a lower interest rate to pay you off. And then, so it's like you get a new credit card and you're using the new credit card to pay off the old credit card.
It's like a refinance, but with increasing the debt pool, right?
Right. So, and this like, and people are like, oh, it's fucking crazy that Apple and, you know, all these huge corporations are paying down their corporate debts this way. But it's like, because the money supply is cheap and it keeps getting cheaper, the Fed in the States, or the RBA here, is incentivizing them to do this. It makes perfect economic sense for you to keep financing and refinancing all of this corporate debt, because why
these are
wouldn't
corporate bonds as opposed to government bonds.
Yes. Correct? So there's corporate bonds and government bonds. Government bonds are thought to be more stable. Corporate bonds can be more unstable, more prone to risk, and thus they have higher repayment rates. So essentially what happens is when the rates rise, well, all of a sudden it doesn't make sense to turn around and keep paying off one credit card with the other credit card. You've got to pay off the full amount of some of those loans, which equates to a cash crunch, which means all of a sudden these companies that had billions of dollars on their cash balance sheets, a lot of that's just going to get eaten up with repaying all of these loans. And so thus everyone freaks out. So even though it's a very modest, here in Australia, it's a very modest interest rate rise, the cash rate has gone from 0.1% to 0.35%. Like it's not like 17% interest, right? Like it's a very modest increase, but like now everyone's freaking out because it means that all of this like free, easy money that's just been like, that everyone's been awash with for the last 15 years is now going to start drying up. And then that has, because all of these little cottage industries and economies have been built around this idea of permanent cheap money.
Capital. Yeah.
And so a lot of investments don't make any sense. They talked about this example in the book where they're like, they came to us with a bunch of fracking projects and they were overestimating how much gas they'd get out of the ground. They didn't seem like particularly good investments. So it was only like a couple of % return on this money, but they're like, fuck it, it's better than zero, which is what we're getting. So it incentivizes dumb, bad investments.
They're investing in a company that's got poor leadership, you know.
But it doesn't matter. Fuck it. It'll be better than nothing.
Poor product. Like the product's a dud.
It doesn't matter. It's free
30
money.
years away from development, and they're like, let's pour the money in.
Which is why there's been such a massive adjustment in the tech sector in particular, is because their whole thing is growth, right? Yeah. They're not talking about the cash flow as in terms of like where it sits now. The value of these companies is what they think they'll be able to generate 10, 15, 20 years from now. And if you've got inflation that's creeping up, what it does is discount that future growth. So all of a sudden, the $30 million in 5 years that we reckon will get you back, if the interest rate is 5% as opposed to 2%, well, all of a sudden that $30 million is worth a lot less to us now than it would be because of the way that the inflation sort of eats into that, if that makes sense.
That, and, you know, if some of these companies that are, you know, perhaps their cash flow isn't as great as what it should be. And, you know, they're, you know, if they're not able to actually get revenue coming in because they're still sort of, you know, developing their product or their idea, as it were.
Tech companies do this all the time.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden those investments are worthless because the company has a cash flow problem, right?
Yeah. Reid Hoffman calls it blitz scaling. We're going to spend all of this money and we're going to scale up really, really quick, which is great, which makes sense if you've got a great idea and a great company and lots of easy capital flowing in. But if you don't have a lot of easy capital, all you've got is a shit business that spends more money than it makes. And it's not going to get these growth, it's not going to achieve these growth targets that you reckon it's going to, if that's the case. So yeah, interest rates are rising. I think it's going to put a lot of people...
Is a lot of the share market stuff just the fact that people are panicking as opposed to necessarily there actually being any structural...
the underlying assumptions. This is what I find so funny, me personally, is because it's like the economy that we have today is exactly the same as the economy we had a week ago. None of the underlying fundamentals have changed. It's just a bunch of rich people's feelings they're all freaked out. They're all butthurt, and so people are freaking out and selling.
I texted you guys the other day. I was like, should I sell my ETFs?
Well,
my ETFs are in tech stocks.
But that emotional reaction that you're having there is exactly what, if everyone has that same emotional reaction, what you have is essentially like a run on the banks. Yeah. So like everyone loses in that scenario because they're pulling money out of the system. Something that's also, I'm going to get off this super, super quick and I'll let you guys talk. I promise. I promise so hard. Something that they also talk about in this book, which is a concept that I'm aware of, I guess, but like haven't fully articulated until now, is the idea of price inflation. So, price inflation versus asset inflation. So people say like you've got asset, interest rates are really low. That means people are borrowing. They can afford to borrow more because they can afford to pay more on these monthly mortgage repayments. And so they're spending more on houses, which is driving up the price of houses. Okay. That's an actual phenomenon. We know what it's called. It's called asset price inflation. And this is a like understood side effect that if you make money really cheap and you can't make money by saving money in your bank account and getting 5% on that money from it sitting in your bank account, well, what can you do? The only sensible place to put your money is housing as an investor or shares, because that's the only way. It's called chasing the yield curve. You got to find some yield somewhere in the riskiest fucking investment. Doesn't matter what it is. You got to find some yield somewhere, which means you push that money out into the economy. This is the system working as intended, right? Say again.
Theranos. I don't know. I just thought of that.
Theranos. Yeah, a good example of a bullshit company. Yeah, people pouring money into a company that was essentially horseshit. But it's this idea that not only is this incentivized by the rules that we've had for the last 10, 15 years from the Reserve Bank, but it's the system working correctly. People go, housing unaffordability is like a real crisis that we need to solve. It's like, no, housing unaffordability has come about because they're more interested in propping up a failing economy than giving a shit about whether anyone can ever afford to live in a house. They're like, this is the system working as intended, is that everyone's paper value on their shit. Look, I'm so rich. It says my house is worth $100,000 more than it was last month. I'm so rich now. But it's like...
Lady at work actually said the other day,
it's just inflation. It's bullshit. It's on paper.
I refinanced my house because it's worth, 20% more or whatever. And then I had all this extra money, so I've just gone and bought a new car, and I've just bought I've redone the landscaping.
This is the system working as intended, but it's bullshit money. It's not real.
Everything's going to be fine.
We just need to chuck $1 trillion coin in there. Because money isn't real. You said it yourself. Money's not real. And we can just go, we lost $1.3 trillion on the stock market. Bam, there's $1 trillion back. I did it, baby.
But Tom, literally, that's exactly what they've been doing in terms of this quantitative easing program and buying corporate debt. The Fed started buying corporate debt. It never did that before. Buying corporate debt and just channeling, I'm not kidding, $45 to $65 billion a month into the financial system in order to prop things up. So we've spent several $1 trillion coins already. The problem is it's just going to Wall Street. It's going into bankers. It's going to corporations. It's going into stock buybacks and increasing CEO pay. It's not actually filtered down into the rest of the economy where it would actually do some good. If we spend money on $100 billion on submarines, that's fine. That's sensible. That's good government policy. But if we have 24/7 nurses, if we do something if we spend money on something that might actually help a person at the bottom line rather than someone's fucking bank account, well, that's inflationary. We can't do that. That's going to be no good for the economy. We've got to spend less, not more.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So we just need to win $1 trillion coin and just, I don't know, make fucking coffee free or something. Do something.
Food vouchers in the Northern Territory. What? Sorry. I mean, everywhere. Make them everywhere.
But we
free
have been
free education. We can just do it. $1 trillion coin. Just drop it in there. Nothing matters. Money isn't real.
We have been doing the $1 trillion coin. It's just been disappearing into the military industrial complex. Doesn't even hit the sides. But there's this moral hazard. If we spend money in the economy and actually improve people's lives, that's going to be inflation. That'll be a hazard. It's like we've been doing this daily for decades into the corporate world. Yeah, anyway.
What's the book called, in summary? Finish your pitch.
The Lords of Easy Money. I would highly recommend it if you're a bit of a nerd like me and you like learning about all this sort of stuff. But it really does go a huge way to explain why the world is the way it is and why you're never going to be able to afford to buy a fucking home. So.
Also may explain why Greg Hunt's, potentially writing letters of recommendation for companies that he has vested interests in, or something like that. I don't know. Corporate corruption, government corruption, it all sort of.
Well, we don't know if he's got vested interests in it, but we know that he's buddies with the guy who runs it, and he pays to hang out with him. So
you say that like maybe former Health Minister Greg Hunt has indeed been writing letters of recommendation for companies that he may or may not have a vested interest in.
Sounds like he has, Tom. Anyway, so you may have been hearing. We're going to go pivot now. Pivoting to Australia.
Yeah, we're coming over to Australia now, where we definitely don't need $1 trillion coin, apparently.
$1 trillion coin. The election is ongoing. What are we now? Week 3, 4?
We've got 2 weeks to go. We're 4 weeks in, 2 weeks to go.
Jesus Christ.
Be still my beating dick.
So most of this week has just been about how Anthony Albanese can't remember a 6-point plan, which
I will spare you the full rant. I don't give a single flying fuck if Anthony Albanese can remember 6 points on a fucking plan, which is one of 30 plans that is not his portfolio. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a flying fuck? The journos were going, oh, you can't remember. It was like they were arguing with him. They're like, no, I need my gotcha, Mr. Albanese. You got a folder that has the points on it. That's cheating. like it's a 6th grade reading comprehension test. And they're like, no. What was the name of the kid in Lord of the Flies? You looked up the answers. No, it's Piggy. Yeah, but you looked it up. No, that's fucking cheating, bro. Like, do you want the answer to the question or not? No, it's like, no. I got my gotcha. I got what I came for. Thanks, guys.
Him having a folder with the answers in it's fine because fucking this shit's written down somewhere. But I remember us grilling what's his face many years ago for not being able to remember the Liberal 6-point plan.
Yeah,
and it was fucking hilarious.
Only because it was funny.
Yeah, but
point 1, stop the votes.
I was going to say, if you can't remember the unemployment rate off the top of his head, fine. Can't remember your 6-point plan for a policy. Oh.
No, but the thing is,
he doesn't have to explain the details. But what he was
doing is he was talking about saying, "Oh, okay, well, what are the 6-point plans to revive the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme?" And he was talking about putting people at the center of it, right? That's the central idea of the whole thing, which is kind of a bit of a meaningless platitude. But he was talking about that. He goes, "No, I want to know the actual points." And it's like, well, I don't know. Like, if anyone asks me to recite a list of 6 things, even if it's like people I'm related to, I'm going to struggle to remember to list 6 things correctly in the correct order. Maybe I shouldn't be prime minister, but it's like, it seems to me like a completely when we've got this Aspen Medical story, Aspen Medical, which has talked about a bunch of government contracts that billions of dollars that were given without tenders or any kind of competitive process whatsoever. And if I was a journalist, every question that I would have for the next week would start with, Aspen Medical was given more than, what's your response to Aspen Medical? Every sentence would have Aspen Medical. It is a giant corruption scheme, but instead we're like, gaff-prone Anthony Albanese tripped over his own penis hole today when he couldn't remember a fucking thing. What a dumb cunt. Like, how is this the debate? How is this the commentary? Tom, your thoughts?
No, that's a great point. I was just also thinking it was a bit unfair for everyone to be like, oh, he forgot the 6-point plan, give him a break, when we were all like, hey, this Liberal guy forgot the 6-point plan and we roasted him into obscurity. He doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. I was looking him up the other day. Guy has just vanished. In just sheer embarrassment. But no, I take your point. Funny
because he was a goober. He was just a goober who he was clearly just reciting talking points that he couldn't remember. Or it's like I'm sure that Anthony Albanese has a grasp on the policy. That's the difference.
Yes. I don't understand why politicians have to sort of like they should just have a response, which is
Google it.
I'll have to refer to my notes, or something, or Google it, like anything. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand why they fold. Like the journalist set a situation up for a gotcha, and they. But the expectation
is this a trap? I'll jump headfirst into this
trap. So rather than anticipating that it will be a trap and that at that press conference there are going to be trick questions and having a response to walk around the trap rather than into it, he just jumps headlong into it. And he's like, no, I've got the notes here somewhere. It's all good.
I don't know why it's so unacceptable to say like, what we're trying to do is we're putting people at the center of it. We're going to, encourage regional stuff. Like, you don't have to list every part of the policy in order to say, like, what we're focused on is bringing, cutting the administrative waste, taking all these private contractors out of it, bringing people back into the government. Like, that is what we're doing. For too long, we've had successive governments from the coalition that have been outsourcing and paying all this money to consultants. There is a huge gap in the capabilities of this agency because of the fact that it's been hollowed out by our predecessors. Now, if we were put in, we would do a lot to change that. Now, the 6 points go into that in some detail, but the focus of our policy is to bring it back and make it more focused on people.
Be a comms advisor for the Labor Party.
But how hard is it? Does he just have a bit of COVID brain? I don't know. But it seems complete. Why is it? No, that's the 6 point. We've got to know the 6 points. How will I ever live until I know the 6 points, Anthony? How will I live?
It's almost like we shouldn't quantify them into 6 points. Like, if you're drafting a policy, you shouldn't be like, all right, these are 6 easy steps to free healthcare. Or what, you shouldn't just phrase it like that. Just focus on free healthcare or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Right, so the Aspen Medical thing. Yeah. Maybe we should contextualize this. So Four Corners, an ABC program here in Australia, recently did their investigation into a company called Aspen Medical, and really the relation that its former CEO and then I guess also current executives have with members of the coalition government, and as a result, how that may have led to them being the contractors for providing personal protective equipment like PPE during the pandemic, and as such making a insane profit, especially given there was no tender for it, any of that sort of stuff. Just seemingly the executives got to meet the relevant health minister, Greg Hunt, at an event, and then it just kind of happened. Bit of not cool. Like, it's just that, like, I don't know. Do you want to look corrupt or like, I don't know.
So I mean, this was probably about when they were, there was a lot of crunch around sort of we have to get stuff now. So there was a lot of pressure on the government to do things quickly. So they did do it quickly, but
they went
about it was poor and it was implemented badly.
George Tsipos, keeping it real times. I just a quick question. How long does it take to put together a competitive tender with like 2 or 3 companies? Just like a couple of days?
Well, as someone who does
a
pitch,
week,
who does pitches for these every day, George, you might know the answer to that.
Pretty fucking quick is the answer, Adam. Pretty fucking quick.
Is it a 2-pager? How many pages are we talking?
No, generally these kinds of, I haven't done anything to government specifically, but the kind of RFPs or request for proposals, as they are known, they are generally solicited by an entity for a particular service, say, provision of personal protective equipment, okay, in this case. And in my experience, these kind of things get turned around within the space of a week, 2 weeks. You, as the potential supplier, someone who's been identified that might be able to supply this thing, will get a document. These are the 50 questions that you've got, and you got 7 days to fill it in and get it back to us. And boy, does that clock start ticking real quick when you get that document. And that is for something as in my case, it's something as inconsequential as like a gift card program. Okay. But like for government programs running into the hundreds of millions of dollars, you would think that at least that level of oversight would be mandatory. And the contracts that were awarded to Aspen Medical without tender were done so before these rules about having to offer competitive tenders were suspended in the midst of the pandemic. So there was a particular juncture where they were like, in March of 2020, where they're like, let's forget the competitive tender process. We just need to get shit done. Yeah. Let's start moving. And we're just going to start awarding stuff and people can figure it out later, which is always a recipe for success. But these contracts to Aspen Medical were actually awarded in February before that.
Right, so they were supposed to do it by the book.
The legislation came through to sort of excuse the fact that they did this a little bit.
Yeah, it does. It does feel like the tail wagging the dog ever so slightly. It's like we've just issued a bunch of completely uncompetitive tenders. Should we maybe suspend the laws? Yeah, maybe we should.
Former Liberal Health Minister Michael Wooldridge, and when we say Liberal, is it federal Liberal or is it a New South Wales Liberal?
I don't know.
Candidate?
I can find out.
Health Minister Michael Woodbridge is actually a lobbyist for the company. So this company
and a former board member,
lobbies for this company. So
just that fun
there's a
revolving
connection.
door between private industry and politics, which the voters love. That's exactly what they want.
Just for clarity on that, federal health minister under John Howard.
Yeah, that checks out.
So, anyway, so obviously they've got connections, right?
Yes, and I feel this ties into what we were talking about the other week when also relating to gotcha questions. Adam Bant's speech to the press club, when he brought up that all the politicians do kill time until they can get amazing lobbying jobs. Yeah. Well, here we have a former health minister who then became a board member and a lobbyist for a company that then later got a tender. That got a government contract straight up.
I know that this is how...
They all just wait to get fucking sweet private sector gigs.
I know this is, to an extent how things work, but seeing it laid out like this is especially, gross and galling. There's a period in which Dr. Woolridge was banned as a company director by the ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, over fiduciary breaches concerning the collapse of a retirement village investment scheme, and he continued to attend Aspen Medical board meetings as an advisor. I'm not on the board because I've been banned because of the retirement village falling apart.
Yeah, because
don't worry about it.
Law.
You're thinking about it. Don't think about it. It's okay. I'm not serving as a director. I'm just hanging out at the board meetings eating sandwiches. Oh, okay. That's fine.
They're like ham look really nice.
I don't know how they do it, but they do these little triangle sandwiches with the ham and cheese and just a little bit of crust, just the right amount of crust, not too much.
Complete
the little pickle.
I fucking hate exec meeting sandwiches. We get them sometimes at work when it's like, oh, hey, after this executive event, there's leftover catering, and it's always these really shitty cucumbery sandwiches.
Hang on, so you're saying you're getting the scraps left over from the executives? That sounds like a perfect metaphor for corporate life, doesn't it?
Sure, but it's just I don't know what catering company we get these shitty sandwiches from, but I thought these people were rich. I thought these people enjoyed the finer things.
Where's the brioche buns? Where's the caviar?
Yeah, when I hear there's leftover snacks from the exec meeting and there's no caviar, I'm like, excuse me? Anyway.
That got me was that Aspen Medical have also been embroiled in a money
corruption
laundering
scheme
scandal in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. all legitimate business stuff happens primarily in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, they're feeling really good. We haven't even talked about Sri Lanka, by the way. Their economy is collapsing before our eyes. But yeah,
it's okay. They're brown people. Don't worry about it.
No, it's absolute. Given what they've suffered through the pandemic as well, it's anyway.
Yeah, no, it is shocking that it is not a bigger part of the news, given all the the unrest that's happening there. But I say that half in jest, but for real, Australian news consumers just don't give a shit about brown people. So that's why it really is as simple as that as to why it hasn't been in
the SBS World News. Yeah.
Unless you are one of the brown people, in which case it's a different story. But
But also the connection to Greg Hunt, the outgoing health minister for the coalition government. He wrote a letter of recommendation of Aspen Medical to do
while Aspen Medical was negotiating
work for the US. Yeah.
While they were negotiating with Aspen Medical. Which seems I don't know, should we Google conflict of interest? Do we need to send a printout to all these government offices? It seems if you have a personal relationship, the director or former, I think it was the founder in this Four Corners report says oh yeah, the way I got access was I paid a guy who was a mate of Greg Hunt's so I could have dinner with him. It was paid access. It's straight up. I paid to be friends with Greg Hunt to have this relationship so he would write me a letter of recommendation so I could go and get business overseas. It was a pure here is a canvas bag with a dollar sign on it so I can hang out with you and ask for favors. Like, it does not get more obvious corruption than this. Like,
because it was actually addressed to whom it may, like, it's this weird sort of blank check letter, like, to whom it may concern.
Which is such a breach. Such a breach of the public's confidence to just have a letter from the health minister being like, hello, it is I, Guy Incognito, who is totally a fan of whatever the bearer of this letter is looking to fucking flog. Like, such a massive conflict of interest. How is this allowed? If it's not illegal, it should be illegal.
In late February 2020. And when was the contract for the PPE? Was that separate?
I thought they said it was happening around a similar time, though.
Yeah.
At least,
But
speaking of doing things like, just keeping an eye on the time, but just to look at like to whom it may concern or to whomever this is, person completely unknown. Pauline Hanson's One Nation is running a lot of candidates.
One thing just before we move off from that story. Aspen Medical has never done like large-scale PPE procurement as a thing. This is just like...
Oh, neat.
Yeah, this is not a thing. That's the most important part of the story. They don't even do the thing that they were contracted to. It's just like me, George Tsipos, setting up like Tsippo Medical and being like, hey, government, can I have $1 billion fucking to do some medical stuff? And they've just gone, yeah, have a crack.
You go.
Well, we had a nice lunch that one time.
We did have a good lunch. So here's $1 billion of taxpayer money.
And they had losses in their previous tax returns.
They were losing money, and then all of a sudden, $420 million in profit as of the last financial year. So it's pretty unreal.
Anyway,
One Nation.
But okay, I think we all agree that the most important thing is Anthony Albanese forgot to plan on the thing. So
definitely.
Those are of equal importance.
But you know what's also very important about Anthony Albanese? He definitely exists.
He's definitely a real person.
Now back to One Nation. Pauline Hanson's One Nation, the party run by everyone's favorite racist, is in a bit of, hot water at the moment, in the seat of Hughes, which is the seat that is currently held by United Australia Party's Craig Kelly.
Yeah, adjacent to the seat of Cook in Sydney, I believe.
Yes, next to Scott Morrison's seat of Cook. So, interesting thing, One Nation, as we've said before, has been running candidates in a lot of seats this election, more than they normally they have in the past.
Big slate of candidates.
That's wide.
And One Nation has a candidate in the seat of Hughes whose name is Narelle Seymour.
Or is it?
Well, it is. The name of the candidate is Narelle Seymour.
Allegedly.
No one knows what Narelle looks like. Not even a social media post. Nothing on Instagram. Not even anything on like any kind of campaign material. Narelle has not been seen campaigning. Maybe Narelle doesn't exist. Who knows?
Is it just the ultimate troll to like create a fake person called Narelle Seymour and then see none of her?
Yeah.
Like, is that the game of 12D chess? They're like, you want to see more of Narelle Seymour? Well, of course you do.
But so there's a forum happening in the suburb of Sutherland. Oh, actually, this might have happened now based on sort of when we got the article. It probably happened earlier in the week. But yeah, the organizer of that event was saying, I've trolled the web for that woman. There is not a photo or an Instagram or anything. And even the journalists, this is the ABC here, checked with the electoral record, because to be like, okay, like you have to be enrolled to be able to be running as a candidate. And the paperwork's all been given in for this person to run. But they checked the electoral record and they confirmed that there were maybe, I think, only 5 people with the name Narelle Seymour in Australia on the Australian electoral record. And only 2 of them lived in New South Wales, where the seat is.
Yep.
And the ABC contacted both those Narelles, and both of them said, no, we are not people running for Pauline Hanson's One Nation.
I love it. I love like journalism working well. I love it. I love everything about this. It's just like one of those guerrilla ad campaigns where it's like, who is James Bogue? You're like, I'm gonna Google it.
what I'm streaming at the moment. So
wait a minute.
This is the One Nation website, which is the I don't know if the viewers can actually see that because George is the one hosting. But
yeah,
anyway,
I can see it.
So this is the homepage for One Nation for Narelle Seymour, and it's got two dudes and Pauline Hanson on the first
photo.
page.
None of them are Narelle Seymour, as far as I can tell.
Narelle Seymour was born in Southport, and her father served in the RAAF. Blah 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 blah. She's worked for the SES, 13 years, and then if we go down a little bit, there's a how to vote.
Oh,
card.
and is this
actually her?
Narelle Seymour? That's the first time we've maybe even seen a picture. So it's very interesting. But then it also caused some issues as well, because there's another candidate in vying for the seat of Hughes, who's an independent, whose name is Linda Seymour. Absolutely no relation.
Different Seymour.
Just name. It's spelt the same, though. Let's see more.
Helpful.
Seymour.
And they're right next to each other on the ballot paper.
Of course they are, because, I don't know, it's not even alphabetized how they do it there, but on the ballot paper, they've put them together.
Randomized,
And, yeah. So either it might, as Linda Seymour has said, it's made their campaign very difficult. But I think also it's just a little interesting. Maybe it could work in Linda's favor, because it could be all the, the One Nation nut bars, might not remember the first name, having never maybe seen a picture of them or seen them campaign. They'll be like, oh, you're Linda. That was probably her. Vote one.
Seymour.
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy nut, but if you have a look at the signature on the form that's been submitted, it looks like someone with arthritis has drawn on it.
I think that looks like my signature if I do it on one of those, courier Palm Pilots, where just your signature just gets butchered no matter how hard you try.
You've done it on an Ozpost Palm Pilot when someone's delivered a package and it just looks like you're illiterate.
As someone who used to check signatures for his job, that's not a legit signature.
It looks a bit suspicious.
Unless they've written it while in a car, or maybe it was on a palm. Maybe it's a digital signature and it is on a Palm Pilot. But if someone's written that with a pen,
I'd love it if she was like a real candidate, but just not, not on the rolls, not enrolled as a voter on the Australian Electoral Commission.
The other thing as well is that this is the same party that a week ago we were discussing. They'd submitted the other guy's paperwork.
Oh, yeah. There's a guy running for another party in Western Australia and New South Wales at the same time.
And they just submitted it on his behalf without checking with him.
Yeah.
That's
what he alleges.
That's what he alleges. But are they just doing this for half the seats that they're running candidates for?
It's also speaking of
what is James Ashby doing up there?
Sloppy. He's getting on the sauce.
He's getting on the sauce again. Speaking actually also of Australian Electoral Commission, submissions to run for politics and referrals and things like that. LNP candidate Vivian Lobo is in a bit of strife. I saw this article. I think it happened this morning. So sorry, I hadn't put it in the rundown.
Tell me about this.
So the AEC are investigating allegations against Mr. Lobo, who is running for a key seat of Lily in Brisbane, which is one that is currently held by Labor by a tiny margin. The controversy is around the fact that they believe Mr. Lobo, quote, may have committed enrolment fraud and allege he did not live at his registered address in Everton Park in Brisbane's north. And this is because, according to Mr. Lobo, is because that they signed a lease to live in this property in the electorate and planned to move in straight away. But, running for election is really busy and we haven't moved in yet. So they're saying you used an address that you haven't for a house that has not been occupied for months to enroll to be up for election. So just an interesting little bit of paperwork and logistics causing some issues for a candidate.
What is it with Hughes as well? That also had a Labor candidate withdraw his candidacy because of Section 44. That was the guy that was thought he was a citizen of Greece.
Dual citizen.
Yeah, Hughes is, I don't know, some weird shit going on Hughes.
Maybe everyone's just so desperate to challenge Craig Kelly, they're not crossing their T's and dotting their I's.
There's no more things on the Wikipedia page that I can see for disendorsed candidates, but I'm sure they'll be coming potentially in the next week or two.
All right.
Anyway,
I love this little detail about Ms. Seymour, just on the previous story. The candidate eligibility form lodged by Ms. Seymour with the AEC contained very little information apart from a mistyped sentence which read, husband is an Australiana born citizen.
Weird God, it's just James Ashby filling out fake forms in Queensland.
How is this happening? How is this real?
Allegedly, Adam.
Allegedly.
you can't say that.
That's my guess, is that there's an intern up there or someone that's just been told, fill out the form.
I think it must be the same person who's running My Body Corporate, because they do not know how to do admin work.
No.
It's not hard, guys. You just read it. You just read an email just out loud once to yourself before it goes out. It's not hard.
All right. Shall we, to cap off this episode, have a good old laugh at Josh Frydenberg?
That's my favorite.
I think that'd make my Sunday.
It's my favorite thing to do. So Josh Frydenberg, who is currently...
we are the Borg.
Projected to lose his seat in Kooyong, is going up against Dr. Monique Ryan.
To quote George earlier, be still my beating dick.
So it's
Josh Frydenberg might lose his seat.
It's not looking good for him. And I know this is like a piece of completely anecdotal evidence and like has no bearing on anything necessarily, but like
say it anyway.
I'm going to go ahead and say it. I'm a podcaster. Okay. So this is kind of my niche, isn't it? Saying anecdotal shit that's unprovable. So I was going out for dinner last night, taking my mum out to dinner for Mother's Day, and
nice boy.
It was good, very good, son. Thank you very much. And I got a candle, paid for dinner. We split dinner, and not split. Me and my sister split mum's dinner. You know what I'm saying? And I bought her a candle. So best son, I think. And we're going out to dinner in Kooyong. It's a very nice Italian restaurant. And I just happened to walk past the Monique Ryan for Kooyong campaign officers.
Yes, the independent who is tipped to unseat Josh Frydenberg.
Yeah. And it was interesting because it was sort of, I don't know, it was like 6:30 on a Saturday night. And so it was quite late. And we saw a bunch of, maybe about a dozen sort of like young, fresh-faced people in the office, like campaign, volunteers in there late into the night on a Saturday.
They work really hard.
Still working and discussing and planning stuff for the next day ahead, presumably. And I was like, man, I don't think that's happening in Josh Frydenberg's offices. I don't think there's anyone in there like excited to represent Josh Frydenberg on a Saturday night. Like it just felt like I don't know. There's a bit of buzz. There's a bit of energy there in the seat that I haven't seen. Well, ever in my and I lived in that seat previously. Yeah. So yeah.
I saw that as well with our local Greens office in Macnamara. There were people there at like 7 o'clock, or it might have been 6 o'clock, something like that. Yeah, working away,
working hard.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if I could do that job. I think I would be, my brain wouldn't be able to deal with the hours. But interesting little tidbit, George.
Anyway. It to me was like representative of like some of the grassroots excitement. I don't know if that'll necessarily translate into votes, but it's always been my experience with elections that the people who have the most excitement, the most passion for what it is they're doing will work the hardest, will have the best ground game as a result. So anyway, during this Sky News, I don't know why Sky News has been getting all of these debates. Like the first debate between the leader.
Debate, shall we say?
I was going to say, George, I think I can guess why Sky News is getting all these
debates. Money.
Well, or more just they're all too chicken shit to hop on the APC.
Well, there's also that. So the first actual like head-to-head leaders debate that's going to be on public television is tonight, which is like 2 weeks out from the actual election. So,
channel's that on?
Say again?
What channel's that on?
I think that's channel 9 from recollection, yeah. But anyway, so here's a Sky News debate between Josh Frydenberg and Monique Ryan, where Josh Frydenberg kind of admits like, but if you don't vote for the coalition, then I won't get elected and I want to be elected. So you should vote for the coalition. Anyway, it's pretty dumb and funny. Here it is.
So the Keep Josh billboards? Well, again, that is, something that if people vote for me, people need to know that if they want to keep me as the local member, but they may have an issue with something that the Liberal Party has said or done, and they want to give us a kick for that, at the end of the day, that may not lead leave me as being the local member, which is, of course, not what I want. We've got Siobhan here. No, he's Siobhan now. So the Keep Josh billboards.
Yeah.
Oh, you just see him turn away and be like, "Fucking hell, Josh!" Like, what was that?
But I'm supposed to be the Prime Minister. You idiots! You fools!
I've watched a lot of clips from that debate, or at least like just that kind of debate press conferencey sort of thing, where it's actually been a rare time that I feel I've looked at Josh Frydenberg and seen a person, because like Monique Ryan just like lists the bad things that his party has done and that he has voted for.
Yes.
Like voted along with them, and saying like he's never crossed the floor even though he's allowed to, which means he's never taken a conscience vote against offshore refugee detention, all these sorts of
energy
things.
policy,
and you
fucking
see
anything,
the look on his face. I was like, oh, he like, this hurts. I saw it, like I just felt looking at his face. I was like, wow, he looks like that cut. That's cutting him. I was like, wow, he has feelings. Oh my God.
You can actually see the point where his little heart breaks.
His heart's breaking in half. I was like, wow, is he actually like upset that he votes the ways that he does? Because, mate, you cannot.
I'd feel bad for him if I thought he had a soul. I would feel bad for him, but I don't.
I know.
So
that's what I mean.
Fuck
it was the fleeting minute that I was like, does he have a soul? Oh, and then I went back to, realizing he doesn't.
Just look at his voting record. That'll set that straight real quick.
That'll tell you how that goes.
There was this really interesting Peter Credlin, Tony Abbott's former chief of staff and current Sky News spokescunt, was doing a little piece on these independents and the marginal seats.
Oh my God, yes. Yes.
And she said something to the effect of like, and because who are these climate change independents? And they're like breaking democracy. They're coming in and infiltrating because of this dark climate money, that the pro-climate change money that we don't know where it's coming from. And they're infiltrating seats that by rights should be liberal. And I'm like, excuse me,
but
bitch?
like challenging us in seats which by rights shouldn't, or something.
I'm sorry,
like,
I didn't doff my hat to the Prince King, Josh Frydenberg, ready to inherit his the right of kings, inherit the seat of Kooyong. You just described democracy, Peter. The people don't want you anymore. If they vote for someone else, it's someone else's seat. That's how it works.
It's actually kind of a strength of the Australian system in that, if you look at the Americans, basically, like that you can have successful candidates get up in independent, successful independent candidates can get up and hold either a balance of power or, at least change the conversation and the dynamic of the way people campaign in these supposedly blue ribbon or whatever seats.
But it's
whereas
so
in the
rich.
US, there's so much money in it, like it doesn't have any effect. Whereas in Australia, no, like people are kind of, that's kind of what I like about the Australian system, is that there is a kind of disdain for, like, after a while, after 10 years, people do start to go, like, I'm kind of sick of these guys. Like, I'm sick of the authority. I'm sick. I want change. I want to stick it to the man. And this is where the independents get up, because
we have a preferential voting system and not a two-party, it's just like it's one or the other. We don't get stuck with, either Labor or Liberal, or, don't vote for a third party, you're throwing your vote away.
Yeah.
Like, it really does. It can result in a situation where, this is a blue party, blue ribbon Liberal seat, and Josh Frydenberg is likely, looking at the polling, it's hard to tell on an individual seat-by-seat basis and all that. So with all of those caveats said, it doesn't look good for him in the seat of Kooyong, which, as Peter Credlin said, by right is a Liberal seat. But that can happen when you have a system which isn't completely owned by corporate money. And the only way you can do that is by A, having mandatory voting, B, having a preferential voting system, and C, by limiting money in politics. And like the climate
spending caps or whatever.
We haven't quite got to the end part yet.
We haven't got to that third part, but like we're definitely ahead of America on the first two parts, I feel like. So it is. I'm really positive for her chances. She seems like pretty level-headed and smart. And if I was in Kooyong, I'd consider voting for her. Like I'd certainly vote for her over Josh.
What may happen this election is that, this is my take, Adam's hot take. Everyone stand back and aghast. I think it'll be a dead heat potentially between the Labor and Liberals, and it'll be like it was in 2013.
It'll be close, I think.
It was 2010, wasn't it?
2010, yeah, where there was about 5 Liberals, and they were called the Pack. They had like some weird name,
the Big
the
Swinging
Pack of
Dicks.
5, and they held the balance of power. They
yeah.
sided with the Labor Party, guaranteed supply, and it actually, like Andrew Wilkie, who was the member for my old seat in Hobart, ended up, for his local electorate, they managed to get a bunch of stuff done.
Yeah.
And, it meant that also they could also still hold Labor to account to a certain degree. Like they had to negotiate. They had to work through policy. So
I'm kind of fine with the minority government with, if these are the independents, if this is the crossbench that they need to deal with in order to get shit through, and their main 3 things are like federal ICAC and like accountability for corruption, climate change, gender diversity. Like if those are the things that they're mandated by by the public to go and try and help enforce in a minority government, I'm totally fine with that. Like that is A-okay with me. Even if, it's just the idea that, this narrative of like, oh, well, it's dark and it's like somehow insidious that people are coming into the seat. Outsiders, foreigners with greasy dark skin are coming into our precious inner city Melbourne liberal white seats, white Christian seats with good white Christian girls. And they're coming into our seats and they're going to like somehow break democracy. And it's like, no, what you're describing is democracy.
Democracy.
You're describing democracy in action is like, people don't like the shit you did and the shit your party did. And so they're not going to fucking vote for you anymore. And you need to do popular shit if you want popularity amongst the people in your seat in order to get elected. It's like, you're describing democracy, Peter. That is what democracy is. And it's like, I, for one, am glad to actually see some of it in action for a change, where it's like, yes, these people should be running scared because hopefully they're about to get turfed because of their shitty record. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, and Andrew Wilkie himself, as Adam mentioned before, said words to that effect the other day on the 5th. Have you guys seen this?
No, tell me.
He posted a comment just on his like website that I thought was a incredibly sick burn. So if you like, if I may, I'll read it to you now.
Please.
Which is, quote, the allegation by the Prime Minister this morning on ABC's AM program with Sabra Lane that independent parliamentarians and candidates are a threat to Australia's security is a shameful slur on decent people exercising their democratic right to stand for election.
Yes.
It's also symptomatic of a government becoming increasingly hysterical at the realization it's out of step with a great many Australians. In fact, only an independent can truly represent their community, as they are not beholden to any political party. And to hear some politician, especially one whose party stuffed up Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Solomons, criticizing me and my colleagues is outrageous. It's all the more absurd when you remember that some of the crossbenchers have actually served in the defense and intelligence services.
So Wilkie was not an ASIO. Sorry, he was an Army, I think, intelligence officer.
Yeah, I remember him being involved.
The whistleblower on weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah. So, like, I love Wilkie. Good on him. What a fucking.
He's a good dude.
I like worked with him. Like, he's actually a really nice. He gets involved. He goes to the local pick up rubbish things.
And I think there's an argument to be made there that, like, yes, you're more involved in your local community, as you just outlined with the local rubbish fucking whatevers, but like you're also forced to engage with the policies as they stand. You're not given a vote card, like Craig Kelly was alleged to have said when he got away from the LNP. Like, who tells you how to vote? Like, you don't get a vote card saying this is how you have to vote on this particular issue. You have to look at the legislation and see if it's any fucking good and see if it's going to benefit your community. And then on that basis, you have to then vote it through or not. It's like, I think there is a potential, there is a capacity there for much more real engagement with legislation if you've got independents in there, because they haven't got the guidance of a two-party system that says you've got to, it's our way or the highway. I really do think that there is a potential there to represent the community, which at the end of the day is what it's supposed to be about. It's not supposed to be about representing the party and their national interests. It's about representing the community to which you have been elected to oversee. Like,
yeah, it's not supposed to be about just sitting pretty until you can get a 7-figure lobbying job. You're supposed to actually represent your constituents.
Yeah, what a wild idea is actually representing your fucking voters. What a fucking crazy idea that these independents have had.
The antithesis of that is like some small European countries that have like 6 minor parties and they all have to sort of somehow come together to form a coalition and then nothing gets done. But that's, a different set of circumstances.
I don't think we're in danger of that. I think there's a healthy medium between like 2 parties that own and run everything and, 7 parties in Greece. You've got your Golden Dawn party. You've got your Syriza. Was that one of the Greases? Yeah.
Right, centre left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've got like 5 different parties and all of them are named, Yorgo or whatever. Like it's like there is a sensible medium between those things of like 2 major parties with some alternate voices in there that actually keep the bastards honest and hold them to account. I think it's astounding that we don't have a federal commission against corruption. I just like for it to be 2022 and for that still to be the case. It's like one of those things where it's like you learned Aboriginals got the vote at like in 1967. And you're like, that seems like too late. It's like, I don't know what the date should have been, but I feel like it should have been earlier than that. That's how I feel about an ICAC. It's like, it'll be like 2023 before we get an ICAC and people are going to study it in school and be like, so is it 2023? Is this a mistype? Or it should be 1923, right? Like, no. It was 2020. It was a full century later than what you think it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. On that
speaking of happening a full century later than you expected it to, the end of this episode.
You son of a bitch. Thank you for listening to the Unnatural Selection Podcast. Make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and motherfucking TikTok. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Make sure you follow me on all the social medias, namely Twitter and Instagram at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath.
You can follow me on Instagram at AC Doreen.
And you can follow us all down to Kooyong, where we will be taking the seat away from Prince Frydenberg.
Yeah, literally. Like just, whenever he goes to sit down, I'll just move the chair that he's about to sit on. I'll follow him around and just do it.
Your music while that happens.
Yeah, and there'll be a big like boing when he hits the floor.
Yeah, or the alternative is a whoopee cushion as well. Lots of practical gags that we could play on Josh.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. Just nice, like innocent sort of things, like the kind of things that you can get away with and are just really annoying, but not
criminal. Thanks for listening, guys. Love your faces. We'll see you next week.
Would it be criminal to follow a politician around all day and just put whoopee cushions down whenever he's about to sit down? That's probably like some form of harassment and stalking law.
Yeah. You end up like that guy from Friendly Geordies.
You'll get it. You get the fixated persons unit on you.
Yeah.
Democracy.
Mamma mia.